we took the approach that we did. So we'll walk through OLI a little bit, talk about the way that our courses are constructed, and then look in Echo to see how to accomplish those things using our authoring tool. And again, answer any questions as we go. So let me find where the screen share tool is, because I have moved everything around. And I am now, should be sharing. Are you guys seeing my Gen Chem 1 syllabus page?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So this is a representation of what all courses look like when you first enter them, regardless of whether you're a teacher or a student. This is what it looks like, with the exception of the fact that you have different links depending on who you are. So if you're an instructor, you have links here for the gradebook and the learning dashboard, but if you're a student, those links are different. They say available practice on them, but the presentation is identical for everybody. An OLI course is generally divided into units and modules. And inside of all of those, depending on the design of the course, you will find generally end of module quizzes or other major activities, such as virtual lab, which is what we have here in the case of Gen Chem 1. Usually anything that could be scored, anything for which a score could be applied, is the kind of thing that you'll see here scheduled on the syllabus page. And then when you jump into a course, you will find more of a breakdown of what the pages are, as well as the structure of the course. We'll dive into reaction stoichiometry. This is where the author of the course ran through with a few demo students so that I can show you what the data looks like after some students have done some of the work in the course. So when you enter a course at the module level, you're presented with these student-centered measurable learning objectives. This is the first major piece of an OLI course that sets us apart from other tools that you see out there. The learning objectives in an OLI course are meant to be demonstrable. They're meant to speak directly to the student. You'll see a lot of action verbs that help them understand what it is they're going to be learning, or what is going to be expected of them. So we have things like apply stoichiometric relationships, or identify limiting reactants, calculate, etc. And this both gives the student the ability to understand what is expected of them and what the content is going to be centered around, but it also gives the author the ability to design activities that measure whether students are actually meeting these learning objectives, because they're demonstrable. So you can design questions to get at, to allow students to show that they have the ability to meet these objectives. Pages are going to be generally structured the same way. You will start with some form of instruction. It can be text, it can be images, it can be videos. You can put, anything that you would expect in an online course. But then the second piece of what makes an OLI course special is that we put into practice immediately, right on the page, practice exercises that the student, where the student can demonstrate what they've just learned. So instead of a course being broken into several different components, with maybe the reading over here and a collection of auxiliary materials like PDFs and videos over here, and then the quiz and the quiz in one place and homework in another, everything is linear and embedded. So a student will learn a piece of practice, or learn a piece of instruction, receive a piece of instruction, and then immediately put it into practice. So that's the second major component of what makes an OLI course an OLI course. Putting it into practice means that we have the ability for the student to actually interact with the material. And in the interaction, what we do is we design the answers to be representative of misconceptions that the students would hold at that point. So what is it that you, instead of having one right answer and three throwaways in this multiple choice, we have one right answer and three that represent the problems that students typically exhibit. So in this case, when the students go to do this calculation, um, the answers are meant to reflect the problems that they might exhibit. In this case, the author understood that generally here, one of the mistakes students make is skipping the step that converts moles of CH4 to moles of H2O using the stoichiometric factor here, and therefore gave an answer that they would have arrived at if they had made this common mistake. So that this immediate targeted feedback is where a lot of the actual learning happens. It's really been so valuable that we find that students will click through all of the answers even after they've gotten the right answer. But we do encourage you to add some form of supplementary instruction, some kind of reinforcement in the correct answers, because sometimes students are just guessing, and it's helpful for them to understand why a correct answer is actually correct. So that's the third major component of what makes this special. So we have the student-centered measurable learning objectives. We have practicing early and often in an embedded inline fashion. And then the third feature is the immediate targeted feedback. And the fourth is the fact that we've actually enabled instrumentation of this interaction. So on the back end, every single one of these questions is skill tagged. Whatever skill it is that students are practicing here is noted in the system, and the more they work on questions with this skill attached, the more we know about whether they're, what their learning state is, whether learning is happening over time, both for the individual and the class in the aggregate. Echo, of course, is where you would do that skill tagging. So those are the four major components that make OLI different from other tools. But when it comes to the structure of a course, just a few more points. In general, I mentioned that a course is going to be, when you jump in, you have your syllabus and you've got your units and your modules and your assessments. That is meant to represent the fact that the research has shown that we want to encapsulate all of that material in one environment, one linear environment, so that students are not bouncing around from resource to resource. The presentation is going to be consistent. The environment is going to be consistent, like the literal location that they have to go to. Because the fewer barriers you present your students, the better off they're going to be. And so each of these modules is going to be designed essentially the same way, where we've got an introduction, and then we've got the natural progression of the instruction throughout the module. And then at the end of the module, we're going to have synthesis activities, like in chemistry in general, those tend to be labs. And then a module summary and quiz, because we want to test. We want smaller tests more often rather than one large test at the end. So the structure of the course will generally be consistent, and you'll have the same flow, where the quiz is at the end, and then before the quiz we have this metacognitive activity called My Response. And a My Response activity is meant to help the student in a few ways. The first is to give the student the ability to do a self-check on his or her learning state. When you enter the My Response, what you're presented with is a Likert scale of your confidence that you could perform a task on any of the learning objectives, on all of the learning objectives in the module, with or without support. And the intention is, as you work through this and you realize that you need a lot of support, you should also realize that maybe you're not ready to move forward to the quiz and get a score. You should be seeking help from your instructor, or going back and working on the material some more. Was there a question?
Can I ask a question, Hal?
Yeah, of course.
So the quizzes actually are graded, and that feeds into their final grade?
It can be, yes. The by default, the quizzes, we have two forms of scored assessments. They're quizzes and checkpoints, but from a technical perspective, they're the same. They just have semantic, you can apply a semantic difference to them if you like. They do have a score applied that would be visible in the grade book, and the work that is done in them by the students does contribute to the learning estimate that I can show you, that I'll show you later in the learning dashboard. But the system does have the capability for you to turn off that scoring and just treat it as an unscored practice exercise like any other.
The idea, though, definitely is if you want it to be scored, you build it in an assessment or a quiz. Everything that's built in the page and those practice opportunities are unscored. So if you want something to be graded and have a grade or score associated with it, you want to build it as an assessment. And we'll show you that in Echo.
Sounds good. And I was just wondering, so say somebody takes a quiz, gets a couple of them wrong, goes through the answers and gets the reasoning behind where they made the error. Do they later on in the course get requizzed, and we can see whether they're actually getting, they've corrected their misconceptions?
So assessments can work in a couple different ways. They can be, you can opt to have those students get the feedback upon submission of those assessments. They can go back and review those attempts. You can give them multiple attempts, and you as an instructor have the opportunity to actually select which of those attempts you want to be populating the grade book. So if you wanted their first attempt or, fifth attempt, whatever. The other thing, there was one other thing I wanted to say about that, and now I lost it.
Is it about when the feedback gets released?
It was about the feedback. Oh, about, I'm sorry, I don't want to take up time. I can't remember it. If it comes back to me, I'll say it. It had something to do with the scoring. I can't remember.
So I was just going to mention that in the administration of your course, most instructors don't use the OLI scores as strict scores that are mapped to their literal scores in their class, but rather they're contributing factors. And for that reason, they either, there are plenty who do use them as just the straight up test grades. But lots of instructors will use it. They will leave it scored by the system, but they will treat it as practice. And that gives a sense to the students that it's important, but it doesn't contribute to their grade. It just prepares them for some other form of evaluation that you're going to administer outside of OLI. That just tends to be one of the ways that people will use it. So we have this Likert scale where students will give their self-evaluation responses, and then down here we've got some open-ended responses. What are you struggling with, and what other questions would you like your instructor to address? And we encourage people to use these in class or with their classes, because there's a tool that I can show you on the learning dashboard that lets you display this to your students with no names attached. So it's anonymized, and they can see that their contribution is helping to guide the instruction. And you can use it to seed discussion forum conversations. You can use it to in a synchronous class, you can use it to direct the conversation. You can use it in lots of ways, but students like to see that they are, at least this is the anecdotal evidence we have, students like to see that their contribution is helping to guide what's happening in class, but they also like seeing the fact that their peers have the same concerns that they do. So it tends to, when you share these results, it tends to promote the further participation down the line. And then a quiz is going to look like your, standard issue quiz. These answers, or these questions, yeah, like Aaron said, you can have multiple attempts, and there's a terms page here. So if there's a schedule, if there's a time limit, etc., all of that important information is here. And it's also where you can return to review your attempts as a student. But when you're in the quiz, it's what you would expect. So there are fill in the blanks, there are drop down questions, there are multiple choice questions, etc. And when a student submits his final submission, makes his submission, there's no accidental submission. The OK confirmation button is always in a different place on the screen. And so this is what a student would see after submission. And if you weren't permitting them to review the attempt because you wanted them to make all of their attempts before getting their feedback, that's under your control as well. Though that is not part of Echo. That's not an authoring decision, that's a delivery decision. So any other questions about everything that we've covered so far? We've looked at, course structure, page structure, just the natural progression of a course, and then the things that make OLI different from other tools. And I was going to show you the dashboard now, if there are no questions.
Well,
because
I do have a question. I'm sorry.
No, by all means.
My course is okay. It's not a gateway course, and it's not a science. It's on race, class, and gender. So my question is, and I don't think you've done anything. I think you may have an introductory sociology course, but you really don't have anything that fits with what I'm studying and how I'm trying to approach that study. So would you have any sort of tool that, instead of a quiz that has definite answers, would be more open-ended? Is there, or do you have a tool that would help with improving writing, from research to actually developing an essay?
Aaron, you want to take this?
I actually am not familiar with tools. I know we have some that have been used, but how you might know more than I.
Yeah, I mean, we do have, so this is used for, the quote unquote softer skills. We do have open-ended questions that you can put in an assessment, and they would be for review, for human review. What we don't have is a form of machine grading on open-ended responses. So everything would need to be human graded for those. But we also we do have, when it comes to instruction rather than evaluation, we have had people do writing. We've had people instruct on writing in OLI, and the most common delivery method for those activities was to do it in small pieces. Of course, you can submit essays and the like, but in general, there would be a lesson on a small piece of instruction that you would give in writing, and you would ask the student with a very thoughtful question to submit some piece of writing. And the question type that we have is called submit and compare. And in a submit and compare question, upon submission, there is then the presentation of what's called the expert response. So what would you want to say in a generic answer to anybody, regardless of the submission that they made? The basic submit and compare is one where there's simply one step. You follow the instructions and you submit material, and then you're presented with your expert response. But we also have a submit and compare and submit and resubmit. So that you can provide, the system would receive the piece of writing from the student. The student would receive the expert response, but the expert response would be directed at self-evaluation of their submission. Did you remember to? Did you include? Have you structured it in such a way? Now, check what you've worked on and submit your edits. And that actually was found to be a very, very effective way of delivering that form of instruction through a system without human intervention throughout, as the students went along. And all of those responses are then made available to you in a report in the learning dashboard, so that you can evaluate them over time. You can evaluate them in real time. You can see them as they come in and then communicate with the students. So that has been done for that form of instruction. And we have a prose style course that was created and is used at CMU. And because all of this material is OER, you could incorporate any of that and customize it to your needs in any courses that you wanted. And anything that you developed yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. So have you used it in a way that not only would you be getting this one student feedback, but other students' feedback in response to the other students' writing, so that you're developing a community? Tool? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Erin, do you know if what's the, is it Lightside? Peerceptive. Do you know if any of these tools? Do you know if any of these tools have been integrated in that way for a peer review feature?
We're in the process right now of integrating Bazaar, which is a collaborative. It's like it provides a workspace and a discussion, and you can seed questions, and you can have folks either work together or peer review. There are other tools out there that we could possibly integrate or use alongside with OLI that does peer review. Yeah, Bazaar would be the next thing I would look at. And what it requires though is authoring help. So because it has also an agent with it, like a bot that can promote responses from students and seed questions and that sort of thing. So if you're interested in that, we're always looking for folks who are interested in building something like that out along with their OLI course. It'd be integrated in, but requires some authoring and some testing. That we're always looking for folks who are wanting to do something like that, for sure.
I am interested, and I'm looking like next spring to revise, or summer, probably next summer, to revise my course. I'm at Empire State College, so yeah, I would love to continue that discussion.
Yeah, what I'll do following up from this is I'll send you a demo video of we have a demo video of how it's used I think it's in a STEM course of some sort, but you'll get the sense of how it works and how the students interact with each other. And then I can set up a follow-up meeting to talk with that team, because there's a separate team that developed that tool, and we'd want to set some time up with them to talk through your idea for how to use it and how we want to incorporate it. So
great.
I'll follow up.
Great, thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
So we'll jump back into the demo, and then I'll take you over to Echo. So the learning dashboard is how do I put this? It is it's the place where the visualization of student learning happens. If a gradebook is the quantitative instructor tool for your students' performance, then the learning dashboard is the qualitative performance tool. Here we have the learning objectives for Module 14, the one that we were in the demo course. And for each of the learning objectives, here, let me blow this up a little bit so it's easier to read. We have the 3 learning objectives in the that were in the module, along with how each of the students performs in what we call a learning estimate. So each of these buckets is representative of a high, moderate, or low learning estimate. This is the system's prediction that, based on their prior work, that on a new question in this learning objective, they will answer correctly. Gray just means that they haven't done enough work yet to generate a prediction. But the yellow and the red represent the students who probably need some form of intervention. Maybe yellow needs some more motivation to do a little bit more work. Red might need your actual intervention. And when you click on the bucket, you can see who is in that bucket, and you can email them en masse if you need to, or you can just click on their name and see their work in particular. And when you click on their name, you get their learning estimate on each of the objectives, plus a breakdown of what work they have done. As you can see, blue means that they haven't worked on it yet, and gray means that they have. So if Sidney Crosby has done most of the work on this learning objective, and he is still struggling with a red learning estimate, that means he's going to need some help. Let's see, I need to go back up a level to all students, so each of these is a skill, a skill that is a component of this learning objective, and each of these has been attached to one or more questions that the students encounter in this module. And you get a little bit of a breakdown of their performance in terms of percentage correctness. Now this is first answer correctness. And then when you click on it, then you can see what the questions were in the module on this learning objective and which ones pertain to that skill in particular that you clicked. And then down here, you get a report on how the class performed. Of course, the MathML here is not rendering properly, but you can see a breakdown of how the students answered on every question. That helps you drill in on where they're struggling the most. You can see which topics are giving them the most difficulty and focus on those. Down here we have a participation presentation, so you can see the percentage of activities that each student has done. And if you were to export it, you would get a little bit more detail. It gets broken out into all activities, and that means anything that's interactive, including those my response activities, but also I forget if it's all activities and just low stakes, or if it's all activities and just high stakes, but it gets broken out into two categories and gives you a little bit more of an idea how students are performing. And the open-ended responses is where you would see those answers from the My Response activity, along with an aggregated report of all the student responses on those Likert scales. And as I explained earlier, you can hide the student names and then share this with the class. You can see down here that it's anonymized now. And then none of the students in this class has gone through the quiz yet, so there isn't a performance report to present here, but the performance report on a checkpoint or a quiz presents the questions in order of, it has a report at the top that shows you which questions were answered incorrectly the most, what the incorrectness answer rate was. Whichever ones were the highest incorrect answer rate get placed at the top so that you can review them with your students and get an idea for what they're struggling with the most. So this is the reason that we're ending with the learning dashboard, is because this is actually where so much of the magic happens with OLI. It's in the skill tagging. The skill tagging that you do in Echo is what enables this to work. You can't get any data about student performance, about student learning, if the interactions that they perform are not tagged with anything. And so it's been a while since I was in Echo, so I may have timed out. So in Echo, which of course is seeing a lot of activity at the beginning of the semester. In Echo, you have the ability to do all, to create all of these things that we looked at, all of the pages, all of the practice activities with their questions, all of the summative activities, the learning objectives and their skills, and also to do the skill mapping, to add the skills to your questions, and then well, you don't get a visualization of the coverage, but you get a report on their coverage so that you can ensure that all of your learning objectives appear on pages, all of your skills are attached to questions, both practice and summative. And I don't know if this is Echo being busy or if this is my network, but I apologize that it's not freshly loaded. So this is what I was going to show you later. Okay, so we're in the reaction stoichiometry module. This is the same place that we were looking before. I just wanted to show you, before we dig in and look at the literal components of the course that we looked at earlier, I'll show you how easy it is to create something new. This is the scope of the course, the scope and the sequence. It's the syllabus, essentially. These are all the units: foundations of chemistry, gases, composition of substances and solutions. This is how it was laid out on that syllabus page, and then each of them contains modules. So where is the module that we were in? We were in reaction stoichiometry, which is in unit 4, reactions and stoichiometry. So we will click on that unit, which is a container, and it has all of these modules. We can simply add a new module. So, or can we? Yeah. Oh, they're both there. We've created a new module, and we've changed its name, and then we're going to add a new page. And just like that, a new page that is essentially just a template of a page already exists. And if you preview it, you'll see that, of course, Echo is under a lot of strain right now. It is, we now have this templated page, and you can immediately view it. Let's take a look at, we will change give it a new title. We will attach some learning objectives. These were, of course, already, they were created earlier. And we've got some text already. Let's add an image. And preview what our changes look like. And now you can see that these learning objectives and the new title are appearing along with the image. So just like that, it's really simple and quick to create a new page.
So are you pulling these, is this OER?
This one happens to be OER, yes. The chemistry was, the source material for chemistry was the OpenStax Gen Chem book.
Great.
And in this case, all of the material that was in when I went to insert an image, these images are already part of the media library. They've already been uploaded, but if the image that I needed wasn't there and it's on my machine, I would just choose to upload it, and then it would appear here, and I would select it and add it to the page. And over here, as with most, here, let me give this a little bit more real estate. As with most items on a page, the authoring palette is here in the center, and when you select any of those elements, if it has some form of advanced mode, some kind of details that can be added, that appears here in the details panel on the right side of the screen. So in this case, we can, this is how we would control parts of the, I'm sorry, how we would control parameters of the image and things like alt text. So you can choose to customize its size. Its default size is actually really a perfect size, but if it were too big, you could shrink it down. and you can change its alignment, and you can add some alt text. And all of that would then be permanent. There's no need to save anything. Everything that you do automatically is communicated to the server, and there's no need to commit anything. So you'll see that everything on a page is essentially a series or a series of elements or a series of nested elements. So this image, for instance, is both the image itself plus a nested caption text field. If I want to add something after the image, then what I do is I select the image itself, and then I insert whatever it is I want to add. Let's add one of the formative assessments that already exists. So I choose to insert an assessment, and then the assessment element is added to the page. Now this is not, I have not added a question to the page. What I've added is a practice activity. The activity exists as its own encapsulated thing, its own resource elsewhere. So think of this just as a reference to the calculate mass activity. And when I go to the activity, I'm taken to it just like, it looks just like a page. You know, now I have my multiple choice question followed by another multiple choice question. This is the structure of that activity. And we've got the question followed by a formula in MathML. And then we have the answer and the correct feedback also in MathML because it's a formula. The incorrect feedback that is addressing some sort of underlying misconception. It appears you inverted the molar ratio. This is very similar to that one that I demonstrated earlier. It appears you didn't use the correct stoichiometric ratio. So the author predicted exactly what students would answer with incorrect, you know, with certain misconceptions, and designed the answers so that the feedback would address those misconceptions. And because in Echo there is no way to preview a practice activity the way that you can with a page, what you have to do is you have to go back to the page that it sits on, and then you can preview the page. And when we preview this page, we see what the structure of the page is that this activity sat on.
Did you add it at the end?
I didn't actually add it to this one. This is the one. This is the page where it originally was. It's now added to 2 pages. It was added to my page. Here, I can actually jump back to that page. So the give it a new title page now has. Oh, did it not stick? And there's the activity on the page. So I would not have been able to preview this by itself. I had to preview it as part of a page. Okay. Any questions about what you've seen so far? We have 2 kinds of interactive activities. We have practice, which we call formative, and we have summative assessments, which are the scored ones. They're essentially identical. The only difference between formative and summative, other than the fact that they are scored or unscored, is the fact that in summative assessments, you can include pools of questions, which is not something you can do in practice at the moment. So in a summative assessment, you have all of these native question types. So multiple choice, check all that apply, ordering, which is essentially a drag and drop of a list. Short answer, that's the submit and compare that I explained earlier. essay where you would submit a long form response, and these forms of input. So text, numeric, drop down, which is essentially like choosing from options in a fill in the blank fashion, and math, along with supporting content, which is introductory or interstitial content that does not assess anything. It's really just, for example, refer to this table to answer the following question, or watch this video and then move on to the next question, things of that nature. And then we have pools. So you can have an embedded pool where you would create a pool just right here, or you can create a question pool elsewhere that would serve to be a pool of questions to multiple assessments. So it's like having the pool as an external resource that serves any assessment that you want to link it to. That's what question pool is, and embedded pool is just a single pool that works only with this assessment.
So it's, oh, I'm sorry, Hal, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So it doesn't seem, thanks, it doesn't seem like it's personalized learning, or is it? Do all students have the same questions no matter what their strengths are? Or does it take students that already know certain content into other modules? How does it work?
No, it does not work.
Yeah.
It is so we have forms of branching that would make different experiences unique, but we do not have any form of personalization based on a learning estimate. Rather, and Aaron, if there's anything that you can, if there's a reason that you can explain why we have designed it that way, that would be helpful. But instead, you are encouraged to create all of the content for everybody, and allow them, rather than giving more material to certain students, give all the material to all the students and encourage those who have already exhibited mastery to skip the unnecessary material. Does that make sense?
Yeah, our philosophy of personalization isn't that we design specific learning paths for students in open and closed content based on their based on some criteria. We really want to give all students need to meet the mastery of those objectives, and then how they do it, we just give tools to the instructor so that an instructor can really hone in on those students, know which students are having trouble with, maybe have additional content they provide those students as a result of knowing where they are and what they're struggling with specifically, or also encouraging students who are, progressing through to, go through at their own pace and do so. They can skip things that they think they need to skip. And you as an instructor can tell them, okay, I want you to at least have the summative, quiz done by this date, or something like that. And then you use that information in the learning dashboard to know if students need more help or not. We really feel like that power should be in the hands of an instructor. I've worked with systems that open and close content. I've designed for students systems that open and close content, and neither one of those give really optimal paths for students. You always find that you usually need a human component involved to really know if the students are struggling or not. So that's what we lean on.
That makes a lot of sense to me, because I'm trying to figure out how do you keep a community of students if each one is going on their own path. So
yeah,
thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I don't have any research results to point to for this, but we do have anecdotal, like we have instructors who have shared with us stories of frustrated students who realize that the path that they have taken is different from literally every one of their classmates, and they they feel that there's a form of unfairness to that they really, really dislike, because everybody feels like it's impossible to be compared to any kind of baseline when everybody has a different experience.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk at length about this, actually. I mean, social learning is actually one of the gets you the highest learning gains, and if students are on different paths, then that kind of doesn't allow for them to support each other either. So there's lots of reasons why we design the system the way we do, and we like it this way. Yeah.
Okay, so it's important to know in Echo that there are limitations to that page preview. And one of them, actually the major limitation, is the fact that no links on a page are functional, links to external resources. And a summative assessment of any kind is actually a linked resource. When you're I have to move this Zoom module out of the way. When you are in a course and you click on a quiz, you'll notice here it opens up in a new tab. If you are in Echo and you are on a page with a quiz on it, we'll go back to that page and we will preview it. You'll see that the page preview does not give you the ability to see anything that opens in a new tab. So it is important to understand how. Oh, and by the way, I apologize. This is a different theme from the one we were just looking at. This is our newest look and feel. It's what most of our courses are being released in now. And this one is the older tried and true theme. It's all the same material. It just has a different look and feel to it. But when you need to review this quiz and test it, what you have to do is you have to preview your course. And what this does is it builds a full section as your course currently exists for you to evaluate and see as an instructor and a student on a development server. It's relatively resource intensive. It takes several minutes for large courses to be built, because what it does is it blows away the old course and it sets up the new one, and then it has to build it, and it takes some time. So this isn't how you want to do most of your previewing. If possible, you really want to do most of your previewing through the page preview if you can. The left-hand column is your organization. This is your order of how you want your course to be assembled. So it's all of the units, all of their component modules, and think of each of these as a container. So when you're assembling your course, you start with the unit here, and when you click on it, then over here is how you actually add or remove resources. So if you don't want this extra stuff module, you would simply click the X to remove it, and then it would be gone. And maybe you change your mind before you leave the page. You can use the undo and redo buttons. Once you leave any page, the undo and redo is essentially reset. So you can't return to it and do an infinite number of undos. Noting that every module is also a container inside of which we have our pages. The same thing is true. You can reorder what you've got. You can add existing pages. You can add new pages. The reason that you can add existing pages is because this is just an assembly of things that exist in a repository. So this project is really just a collection of pages and of practice activities and pools of questions and images, and those things all have to be assembled in a certain way. And what that assembly is called an organization, but that also lets you have different assemblies. So maybe you have an abbreviated or a truncated version of a course that you run in the summer for only 8 weeks instead of 15, and you want to use the same materials, but you want it to be a shortened version of the course. So you can create a different organization with those same materials. In that case, you could go to your overview page and your list of organizations, and now you can copy your organization, and it would be a different version of the same materials. Any questions about how organizations allow you to have different structures of the same material?
No, but I do have a question about, I'm sorry, my husband's being really noisy, but CTAT, I see that under general chemistry, CTAT. Now, the person I talked to at Empire State was saying that's probably what I'm interested in, but I have no idea what it is. So what is CTAT?
Well,
Erin?
CTAT stands for Cognitive Tutor Authoring Tool. And what that is we have the ability for folks who aren't programmers to develop cognitive tutors. And what cognitive tutors are really advanced activities where you can provide feedback or even trace through problems that might have multiple ways of solving them. So if you can set up a problem where students can go down one path and get feedback all along that path, or go down another path and get feedback down that path. These cognitive tutors are usually really difficult to create, but this authoring tool allows it to be a little easier. For chemistry, I think we have a number of cognitive tutors that have already been created. So I'd have to look into more what's into that specific course, and if it's open and free and usable, what state it's in, that sort of thing. But we have, I believe, a number of CTAT tutors for a variety of domains that we have available for plugging into a particular course.
I could imagine that it would be really powerful in a sort of choose your own adventure synthesis activity like you might be interested in Soch, where there are very complicated pathways that students could choose, and that there would be decision points all along the way, and you could literally provide feedback at every decision point, and allow for complicated pathways through the entire process.
Yeah, I don't know that I've seen those developed in social sciences yet, but I'm sure I could find some examples. We have a pretty extensive population of researchers and authors, instructors who've built these CTAT tutors. So I can start to ask around if there's any in that specific domain.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I will. I'll do that as well as when I'm reaching out about the Bazaar tool as well. But I've developed a number, like a lot of the courses that we show are based on kind of STEM domains, but we do have a number of social science courses that I've helped develop. And I actually, my specialties are in social sciences and humanities, and developing those types of courses. So if you ever need any kind of just pedagogical guidance on how to use these tools to develop that kind of course in that domain, I can certainly provide more one-on-one support as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'll blow through the last of these major echo points. We're here still on the overview page, which has these 5 tabs. Organizations is where you see the existing organizations and can choose among them, and you'll see that your selection reflected on the left. That is whatever organization is selected is the one that would preview when you click your preview course button. Resources is that sort of bucket of all items in your project, whether they are in your organization or not. You can have 1,000 pages in here and only use one. Whatever is in your organization is what gets published to students, but your project has all of these resources that you could add to your organizations if you needed. You can also you can search them through them. You can create new ones. This is where you add some text and choose whether you're creating a page and a practice activity, etc. And just at that point, what you would have is a new whatever resource you had created, but it only sits in the project. It has not been added to any organization yet. You would then need to use your org editor to add it where you wanted. Alternatively, you can simply do that at this point. So if you wanted to add a new page to module 2, you would just add it here instead of creating it on the resources page and then having to come back here and add it. That makes sense? You can come from both directions. You can create something and have it just exist in the bucket, or you can create it as part of its location assignment.
And I'm not sure if you mentioned this yet, Hal, but I mean, we really, this whole tool supports simultaneous authoring and development. So if you have folks working for you, you could have them building activities in that resources tab while you're building pages, and then you can put it together. Also, folks can work in different parts of the organization all at the same time. The only thing you can't do is work on the same page at the same time.
Right. Analytics is a place where after your students have run through your material, you can pull in a data set of their work, and you can see how they performed over time on the questions, and this helps you dig in and find places of struggle. So in this case, this question about confiscation of computing equipment was answered incorrectly 56% of the time. Was that by design? Is it a mistake? Is it too hard a question too early in the learning process, etc.? This is a tool for continuous improvement efforts of your material after students using data after students have run through the course. The caveat, though, is that skill tagging is essential. This is meaningless, and there is no data without skill tagging, which is, you know, what you do with the objectives and the skills. Workflow is where you communicate to OLI what your status is. So you start in the development status, and when you're ready to go to the QA server and do all of your testing, which is a different server, there would be a button down here to request QA. That would notify us that you guys are ready to finish development for the time. You know, pause your development and test what you've built because you're ready to use it with students, and then you would go through your QA process and change whatever you needed to here in Echo, and then we would send it to the production server for use with your students. And the details panel is where you can change all of the sort of basic metadata about your course, the title, the description. This is especially important for your own team in case they're working on multiple courses that are similar to each other. This is where you can add new team members. They have to already have an account. It's not an invitation tool that creates accounts for people. Instead, they have to have created their account, and then you can find them here and add them. And here is where you select the theme that you want to see when you use the preview. Actually, it's not the preview course button, it's for the page preview. And when you select this, it will control what you see on your page preview. You can also, if you're doing anything in foreign languages, you can select the default language that you want to assign to the foreign language spoken terms, so that a screen reader will read them in the proper accent, so that it's not trying to read French words in an English accent, for example. And you can also choose the license that you would like applied to your content, copyrighted or the different CC BY licenses. Those are the basics. Any questions? There would always be lots more questions. In fact, one question that I think might apply that I would anticipate is, if you have OER materials, let us know, and we will work with you on ingesting them so that you don't need to recreate them. We currently have a Google Docs ingester, and we have a that turns a page in Google Docs into a page of OLI material. But we also have a converter tool that can take Pressbooks exports and pull them in the same format that they would appear in Pressbooks. So a page in a Pressbooks book would be a page in OLI.
And we know that as you dive into development, you'll have, you know, probably more questions or questions even like, oh, I want to do this thing. How do I do this thing? Using Echo, because this has been a pretty, you know, overview kind of thing. We're always available. Hal and I are here to always help with any of those types of questions, as well as you start to develop.
You're doing such great work. It is really exciting to see, and to see what feedback the students get, what feedback the instructors get, and just the design is beautiful. So thank you. It's exciting.
Thank you. I'm excited. I love to see a new person starting to, you know, embark on this process of building out their learning in this way. So, you know, we're here always to support, and thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Hal. Hi, my name is Farhan. I'm from Jordan, from Middle East.
Hi, Farhan. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Hal. Nice to meet you all. I want to ask, can I host Echo authoring tool in my local server, or it's only in the web?
Echo is Echo open source, Aaron, or is it only web hosted at the moment?
Echo is open source. So there is a GitHub repository that you can go and look at the code. I think we can even work with, we haven't run our authoring tool on another, for another server yet, but our delivery tool, OLI, we have had folks, we can Dockerize it and run it on different servers. So if you're interested in more of that technical aspects of our tools, definitely visit our GitHub repository. I can even follow up with more pointers to that.
This session, this webinar, recorded. So can we have the link if I want to re-watch it again?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I will upload the recording to YouTube, and both of you can have the URL to that, and you can watch that and any of the other ones. We have a few. We did a few workshops on the OLI platform. You know, the student delivery side, so you can review those in the same place that the Echo orientation will be hosted. It's an OLI support videos account.
Because I missed the last week recorded webinar. When I saw the YouTube, I didn't find it. I find the last one 9 months ago, I guess.
Okay, yeah, I'll make sure to share the when we send you the URL for today's recording. We'll also send you one from last week for the platform demo.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so we're a couple minutes over time. Time to wrap up. I really appreciate you guys coming. Thank you for joining, and thanks for all the questions too.
Thank you. It's great.
All right. Yep. Let us know how we can help. We'll be in touch.
Absolutely. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.